All right, we're recording. I am so excited about this session that we're doing this morning. And just full transparency, I've literally spent hours getting ready for this because it took me down rabbit holes and I learned a lot. And then pulling together what are some of the nuggets for 45 minutes. But it also allows us to always bring bigger, better, new things to our classes. Starting out with a quote this morning, which is, the goal is not to be better than everybody else. The goal is to be better than you were yesterday. So if you can just be 1% better, that is fantastic. And just welcome to our LEADing Lab, whether you're watching this recording or you're here with us live. Some of you are driving and you're listening in. And I just want to say hello. I'm Sherry Yellin, if we haven't met. And I'm excited to have Patty here today and David here and Lance and Faye all the way from the great state of Idaho. So we're excited to be here with you guys. And I'll tell you, we started this a couple of years ago, just gradually it's grown. And it was really a way to connect leaders that we were working with from different industries and just kind of take you out of the harsh reality for maybe 45 beautiful, sacred, meaningful minutes and give you some information, hopefully give you some inspiration, and then send you back out into the ring or onto the field, whichever metaphor you want to use, but to send you back out there changing the world. It's also a way for us to provide coaching for those who are not in an organization where they're getting development. So if you're looking for a coach, then look at us, okay? So we're so excited to another great opportunity that's coming up in October. We're gonna do, drum roll, our first ever LEADing Lab in person, live and in person for real human connection. And we're working on that, pulling the details together. But it's coming together, very exciting. And we want it to be a day that is entirely about you. Kind of a one day, one of a kind thing where just really capitalizing on the word lab, where you can experiment, explore some new ideas, connect with some new people. It's going to be a little bit crazy, a lot of fun, very interactive, and we're going to walk through these 7 principles of how the brain learns best, but in a very unique kind of way. So we'll have all the details and registration open in our LEADing Lab next month. But for now, I just want to plant the seed and let it be germinating and growing for you thinking about joining us in October. And even if you've got a team or you've got peers that you think they could really use a day like this, then go ahead and spread the word. So that's our LEADing Lab Live. That is coming up, and we'll have all that information to you, I promise, in our June session. So as you know, if you've been attending any of these, our word of the year is more. I think a lot of people had that word for this year because it rhymes with 4. But anyway, and I started out this LEADing Lab series talking about just being a bigger, better, bolder version of yourself. So really quick, I want to just pause. And if you wouldn't mind opening up chat, and I want you to just take a minute, if you don't mind sharing your industry. You can share your company name if you want, or just your industry. I want you to just kind of take a breath and do a gut check. What are you encountering more of right now? So when you think about more, we set some goals at the beginning of the year. What are you encountering more of right now? And the second question that I want you to just think about, is this the kind of more that you want to be experiencing 6 months from now? Okay. So thanks for just putting that in there into chat. Yeah, Justine, opportunity to change lives. I work with Justine. I can't say enough good things. So she's also going to be joining us in October. It's a forced visit. She doesn't have a choice. I want her to share some of the great things that I've been learning from her. Um, yeah, it's just a gut check, really. More workload. I'm with you, Guillermo. One of the things that I'm doing this week is going back to blocking calendar. It just, the default place feels like overwhelm. Yes, need more for coaching. Absolutely. Okay, so I want you thinking about that. More stress, more competition. Yeah, for sure, Faye. Thank you for just being honest with that. Because it's just important that we're checking in of what am I really experiencing more of? How am I bringing that into my life? And do I want to be living with that 6 months from now? And yeah, yes, more revenue. So here's the thing. We're going to be focusing on innovation this morning. And all of these things that you're experiencing more of, whether it's good things that you want to have more of in 6 months, or not so good things that you'd like to have less of in 6 months, these are our golden opportunities for innovation. So when I was talking to you in January, we were setting some goals. We are 5 months into this year. And by the way, in June, we're going to do a midpoint check-in. But I told the story of Richard Branson. I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to be invited by Richard Branson to visit him in Necker Island. I'm just manifesting that. But anyway, the story goes that in 1978, he's really trying to impress a girl who later becomes his wife, and he wants to take her on a vacation. He has some friends that says, "Hey, I think they're selling some of the Virgin Islands. Go check into it." So when he called about buying an island, which he had no intention of doing, they actually flew him and the girlfriend to Necker Island to tour. And then after this tour, after they have this amazing vacation, they bring him into the office to talk about purchasing the island. And I think at that time they were wanting a couple of $1 million for it. He says, "Well, I think I can scrape together about 150,000." And they say, "No, thank you, but thanks for playing." Send them back. He continues to communicate with them for the rest of the year. And I think he ended up buying the island a year later around $180,000. But the story is great because it challenges us to think bigger and better and bolder. And I think it's so important that we're surrounding ourselves with these stories, but we're also surrounding ourselves with people who are aspiring us to think bigger, better, and bolder. And so if you're new to us here, that's one of the things that we always want to inspire the people that we get to work with. Think bigger, better, bolder. For what at least has been proven, we don't know yet, but I'm pretty sure it might be our one and only. So we want to take advantage of it and live our biggest, best, boldest life. And innovation is absolutely critical to doing that. So if you haven't learned, been around with us a long time, this is a foundational principle for what we do in our work. And it is basically this: if we can lead, learn, and live the way the brain works best, we can get better results with less effort. And if we don't, we are creating pain. We are creating usually the very thing that we're complaining about. And here's another important principle here. If you are creating the pain you're complaining about, you forfeit the right to complain about it. So this concept of innovation is a perfect poster child example because oftentimes innovation is actually one of about 4 or 5 words, one of the top words that end up in companies' mission statements, their vision statements, and their value statements. And my guess is most of the time when people are using this word, they don't really know what it requires. They don't really know what it requires in the culture of a team, an organization, but individually to really bring it to life. Most of the groups, most organizations, most schools are not working in alignment with how the brain learns best. They're working actually against how the brain works best. And again, when we do that, we're just creating a lot of unnecessary struggle and costs and pain. And so to dig into innovation for just a few minutes and bring to you some of the things that I think are so important here is one, to differentiate creativity from innovation. They are used interchangeably so much of the time. And a couple of months ago, we were talking about efficiency, and we talked about how to utilize creativity and innovation to being more efficient. But today I want to split those things apart a little bit more, because create means to grow from nothing. So you can look around you right now, and I'm sure on your desk, in your car, if you're looking outside of your car, find an item that at one point did not exist. Someone created that. This 45-minute webinar did not exist a week ago. I spent a lot of time pulling it together. And so it's to grow really out of nothing. And innovate simply just means to take that has been created and nudge it. So in other words, after this, I'll ask my team for some feedback, and there will be improvements that we could make. Other words that this word means is to renew, restore. You might think about nudging a little bigger, nudging a little deeper, nudging a little wider. Innovation is just push a little, tweak it. And therefore, there's no end to innovation. And so those are two very different words. Another thing that I think about with innovation, this is where opinions come in. Like, it's so much easier to innovate. It's all around us. So, the creating is sometimes the most challenging thing. But once something is created, then it's easy to nudge. We have a lot of opinions about it. Lance and I think it's funny if we're ever on a flight, it'd be funny if someone says, our pilot today is Patty Vaccaro. Patty's never actually flown a plane, but she has a lot of opinions about flying a plane. Not that Patty would, I just used her as an example. So this is where opinions come in, because everybody has opinions on how to improve once it's created. But another great phrase that I like to use to help you find opportunities for innovation is simply to ask, even better if. Even better if. Like, this process is working, but even better if. Or, I've been able to produce a lot of work, but even better if. Even better if I could do that without stress. So let's start digging in and see what we can find to do that. So just a couple of ways. At the end of this, I think Lance has already put it in chat. I just want to walk through what I've found as about 15 innovation markers. So 15 markers of teams that are ripe for innovation. That one pager is in our chat, but I also want to walk through that at the end of our time together. I'm sure there are many more than just 15, but these are the 15 big hitters that I see make the biggest difference. So this morning, I wanted to walk through what I see as some of the greatest innovation barriers. Also, what do I see as ways that we could leverage the greatest innovation boosters? And then we'll end up with those 15 building blocks around innovation. Okay, so to get us started, I want you to think about a scenario. And this is going to be audience participation, just heads up. So let's say we've all been traveling down a 2-lane road. And when I'm saying a 2-lane, I mean there are 2 lanes on your side and 2 lanes on their side. And traffic is flowing beautifully. You might be in the right lane, you might be in the left lane, but things are rocking along just fine. Until suddenly, one lane ends. Maybe you've been given a heads up a mile or two before, but the lane ends. And so here's the audience participation part. Let's say, and I want you to just put in chat the option that sounds most like you. Okay, so in the right lane, let's say you're traveling along in the right lane. Do you move over in plenty of time?
I could focus on
You
key
saw
programs, the ones.
Okay, I'm just gonna mute for a second.
I communicated that to
Lance,
my
if you don't
team.
mind, so I know everything's going on around
All
us.
agree that we should focus on these, basically fill these columns out.
Looks like I can
key
do it.
programs.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you've got, I'm gonna give you 5 different options, all right? So 1, you move over in plenty of time. Are you that driver that waits to the very last second to move over into the left lane? I have 3 more options here. Or let's say you're driving in the left lane. Are you that driver that says, you know what, I got plenty of time, come on over. Always room for one more. The more the merrier. Would you be that driver in the left lane that will selectively allow who you let cut in front of you? Okay. Like, have you ever been in that left lane and you saw that the right lane ended, but you're in the left lane and your first thought was, man, sucks to be you over there in the right lane? Because it gives you this feeling of superiority. You get to decide who you let in and who you don't. And then the very last one is, would you be that driver, maybe in a big truck, where if traffic's not merging in the manner or at the time that you think, you would kind of like straddle the right and left lane so that people have to get in line? Okay, I'm seeing a 1 and a 4. I'm seeing a 2 and a 5 here. Move over in plenty of time. Yeah, absolutely. So I want you to just think for a minute, what would make you to make that choice? Like, you know, when you think about whether I'm in the right lane, what do I normally do? If I'm in the left lane, what would I normally do? And why is that? You know, why is that? So I was asking my daughter these questions and she said, it depends on my mood. If I'm in a good mood, I'm like, come on over. She also said, it depends on what state I'm in, like literal state. She goes to school in Oklahoma. Oklahoma drivers tend to be more friendly and more, you know, gracious than Texas drivers. In fact, when she comes home, she'll say, I got to get in my Texas mode of driving because it's so different than the Oklahoma mode. And then the other thing that she said I thought was interesting was, it depends on who I'm letting in. Like, I'm judging who I'm letting in. So I wanted to share this with you because actually the most efficient and the safest approach to take is to move over at the very last second. Let's take a look.
We've all been in this situation before. You're driving home from the hospital after a grievous injury where a fan threw bricks at you as a joke, and you see that because of construction of a new McBurger Wendy's, the right lane is about to end, and this 2-lane highway will be reduced to 1 measly lane. So, what do? Well, being the morally upstanding, lawful good driver you are, you go ahead and merge into the left lane as soon as possible and wait in line, listening to your own podcast showmakers, available now on Nebula. But as you're waiting in your slow queue, thinking about what a great point you're making in the podcast, you see that some punk-faced jerk with slicked back hair in a hot red sports car doesn't merge over. He keeps driving in the right lane, and then right before the convergence point, merges left, cutting in front of you and everyone else. What a jerk, right? Wrong. What if I told you that that jerk in the right lane was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Bet you're regretting calling him a jerk now, huh? And what if I told you that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't cut in line? He did exactly what traffic experts say you're supposed to do. It turns out, merging early is actually bad for traffic. It's sort of like talking to your grandparents about politics. It may seem like the right thing to do, but in the end, everyone just ends up angrier and you get cut out of Pop Pop's will. The reason is pretty simple. In dense traffic, if everyone merges early, they make the open lane unnecessarily clogged, while a long section of perfectly good road sits unused. Instead, traffic experts recommend something called the zipper merge. Cars drive in both lanes until the merge point and then take turns going through it, closing like the teeth of a zipper. Some experts say that adopting the zipper merge could actually reduce traffic by 40%, while other experts say that dolphins can swim up to 30 miles per hour. That second set of experts were dolphin experts. One real-world example of the problems a zipper merge could solve can be seen in Fort Collins, Colorado, at the intersection of southbound LeMay Avenue and East Horsetooth Road, right next to the Warren Tennis Courts, Warren Lake, and the offices of an Allstate insurance agent named Jennifer Harms. There are 2 left turn lanes on LeMay, but here's the thing. Most people plan to only be on Horsetooth for a hot second before they make a quick right turn back onto LeMay right here. And because of that, all the cars tend to stack up on the inner turn lane, so then they'll be in the right lane once they turn, and thus can easily make their right turn back onto LeMay. Basically, the number of cars who use the far left turn lane on South LeMay is the same as the number of cars I've been hit by, one blue Acura. And here's the problem. Because there's always a really long line of cars in the inner turn lane, it takes longer for them all to pass through the light, which means the traffic lights have to be programmed to stay green longer to clear them all out, which means everyone at this intersection ultimately waits for longer. If drivers would instead evenly split themselves in the 2 turn lanes and then zipper merge into the right lane on Horsetooth, everyone would be better off. And that's why the Colorado Department of Transportation has endorsed the zipper merge, even putting an entire page on their website urging drivers to adopt it, including a video featuring the mean chef from Orange is the New Black and a child breaking labor laws. In 2011, Minnesota's Department of Transportation ran an entire campaign urging drivers to adopt the zipper merge, including billboards, PSAs, YouTube videos, and even buying the domain dothezippermerge.org, although they've since abandoned it and it might have a new owner whose name is definitely not me. In 2019, North Carolina even introduced a series of speed sensors and big light-up signs that would sense when there was upcoming congestion at a merge and urge drivers to use both lanes to merge point, y'all. In Germany, the zipper merge has been common practice for years, and they even have a long, confusing German word to prove it. But not all states have endorsed the zipper merge. And that's because, like airport security, communism, and this joke about communism, while it works great in theory, it doesn't always work great in practice. And that's because theory fails to take into account the human aspect of driving, specifically our capacity for spite. You see, the zipper merge can sometimes fail when so-called traffic vigilantes see someone trying to do a late merge and refuse to let them in, believing that the late merger is trying to cheat or cut in line, and that by refusing them entry, they're doling out pure, cold traffic justice instead of what they're actually doing, which is creating even more congestion and risk of crashes. The good news is, if humans don't manage to figure it out soon, computers probably will, at least if self-driving cars ever manage to be rolled out in the widespread way that experts have spent 10 years saying is coming in the next 10 years. The most efficient way to reduce traffic is for all cars to drive at a constant speed at a fixed distance from the car in front of them, which falls pretty high on the list of things that humans are bad at, but computers are great at. Until then though, now that you've watched this video, you can start merging at the last minute, and when people honk or yell at you, you can bask in the glory of knowing that a YouTube video told you that you're right and they're wrong.
Okay, so I want to walk through how this represents so many great principles in innovation. But if you have to go, at least we've made you a better driver today. So there you go. That's a win-win-win. But I want you to think for a second, what are some of the ways that this zipper merge traffic example represents the innovation and the barriers to innovation, but also potential boosts to innovation? Anything like just like burning, you're like, I see this when I think about how that example aligns with innovation. Change is hard unless everyone is aligned to the change. It just like it shakes our snow globe upside down in so many ways. So I
We've all
wanted
been
to
in this-
walk through what are some of these barriers and boosts to innovation. Now, hopefully you have an idea. Maybe it's the thing that you're wanting more of or less of in the next 6 months. It may be an opportunity that you have at work. But here's the most important thing that we've got to be able to do if we really want to take advantage of innovation. And that is detach from needs. So here I go. Man, I see this every single day. All right, so the first need that I wanted to talk about is the need to be right. Like, I really want you to think about what are some things you're experiencing more of that's in the negative because of this need to be right. It is such a barrier to innovation. And so, just some points that I wanted to make here. As in our traffic example, just because something feels right doesn't make it so. And how might it be different if our actions were not so much based on what feels right, but rather based on a vision of what we want or where we want to be? So let's say this, you think about your own habits, your own actions, things of that nature. What we know is that your highest performers are not acting entirely based on what feels right. They're acting in alignment with a vision that they have. You can think about your own health and well-being. So David is doing the 75 hard right now, and I'm sure he hasn't missed a day. Okay. But I can guarantee you that David's not in the morning based on how he feels, but rather on a vision that he has. The other thing that I wanted to talk about this is because if I need to be right, that's assuming there's a wrong. And I just want you to think about, what does it mean to you to be right? And what does it mean to you to be wrong? So one implies the other. Because is your value as a human being, is your value as a leader connected with your need to be right? And at what costs? And one of the Leadership Tuesdays that went out this month talked about hippos and zebras. They can absolutely kill innovation. So the hippo is the highest paid person's opinion. And oftentimes that's the person with the highest title. And we've all been in those meetings where maybe innovation could have been sparked and fueled and grown into a much better product, but you had a hippo that came in and sat down on it and killed it. I was in a meeting like that a few weeks ago. Or the zebra. The zebra stands for zero evidence, but really arrogant. It's the person that doesn't have zero evidence, but really arrogant, really confident. Hippos and zebras can kill innovation. So for us to recognize that, certainly when it's somebody else, but always turn that mirror back around. Where are you being the hippo or the zebra? And you're killing innovation. And so I just want you to think for a moment, what might be different if I could detach from this need to be right? Because a boost here is that I can be right or I can be rich. It's a great quote by Dan Martell in Buy Back Your Time, where he says, 80% done by somebody else is 100% awesome. So maybe it's not exactly the way you would have done it, but allowing somebody else to develop is pretty darn amazing and can help you get more of the things that you do want. And another boost to innovation is to redefine, like, it's okay to not know. That doesn't make you necessarily wrong. And to maybe reevaluate the meaning and the weight that we give to being right. Because the not knowing, the curiosity, the wonder, that's the beginning of innovation. And what else? Even better if, and detaching from this need to be right. The second need I wanted to tackle this morning that I see a lot is the need to be liked. Okay. So it's an interesting thing because your brain loves to be included. I mean, whether you're the 14-year-old that didn't get invited to the party or the 44-year-old that didn't get invited to the project, we will feel it because our brains love to be included. In fact, one of the number one threats to your brain is social rejection. Your brain loves to be included. Innovation often means you're not going to be liked. Okay. It means thinking differently. It means challenging. And especially if you're challenging something that is a long held cultural norm, it may mean you're not included. And so, a couple of things here that I want to challenge. What if this need to be liked is actually a pretty darn selfish thing? Because we think, oh, this need to be liked and I want to be liked. That's so selfless and look how noble I am. But what if it actually is selfish? So I'll give you a good example of that. Back in 2016, 15, I hired my first coach and I invested a lot of money, like a shocking amount of money, to work with this coach. Well, one of the things that he was going to do was help me grow my business. And so I was teaching a workshop at NASA Goddard. And it was an all-day workshop. And at the end of the workshop, I was supposed to say, hey, if you want to sign up for a free coaching session, put your name on this piece of paper. That's it. So I didn't do it. And on the way to the airport, he calls me and he said, how many people did you get signed up? And I said, I didn't do it. I don't have any names. And he said, why not? And I said, well, I didn't want to come across like I was salesy. And like I wanted to be liked. I wanted them to leave the day liking me. And he said, so you made it all about you. Because it made you uncomfortable, you didn't make that offer. Yeah, that's true. And he said, was there anybody in that room that could have really benefited by working with a coach? And I said, absolutely. And he said, so because it made you uncomfortable, you deprived them of an opportunity that would have been free, that would have helped them. And it has really stuck with me. Where else are there ways that I am so committed to being liked that I'm missing opportunities for innovation, for things to grow, for people to grow around me? So if you're one of those that suffer from what Lance and I call FOBU, fear of being unpopular disease, just think where if I detached from this need even a little bit, how could that be a boost to innovation? Because what people think they want may not be what they want. And we're not in service to people if we're not willing to challenge, if we're not willing to have the courage to step out, be different from groupthink, and inspire innovation. So here's a booster instead of a barrier. Maybe it is realizing I was not put on the planet to be liked. I was put on the planet to be in service, to bring forth skills, knowledge that I have to offer. And the other thing that I just wanted to challenge as a booster, right, is that quit measuring your success by how many people agree. I mean, I know we don't wake up in the morning looking to, to be an abrasive disruptor all the time. But where is agreement not the best measure of success in an innovation? What if instead making people uncomfortable is the best measure of success in innovation? Okay, number 3, If you don't resonate with those first two needs, I want you to think about this one. Where do you have the need to be clear? And what if you could detach from that? So when I'm saying that, where do I have the need for clarity, absolute clarity, before I move forward? So a lot of us get into can kicking mode and we're not moving, but innovation happens in movement. It doesn't happen by sitting in front of your computer and waiting until everything's perfect. Let's get moving. Our brains do not like confusion. It just does not. It doesn't even resist change. It resists confusion. It doesn't like to be unfamiliar, uncomfortable, unclear. We are wired to resist this. And so that's why innovation, doing something different, can feel so uncomfortable. So we sometimes fiercely resist the unknown. And I will tell you this, the more confusion, the worse it gets. A confused mind says no. Like a confused mind walks away. So I was mentioning I work with Justine. She helps me with my health and wellness. And that's a whole big confusing world. I don't want lots of options. I want maybe 2 or 3, right? Because if it gets too detailed, too confusing, your brain says no. And especially when money gets involved for whatever reason. I don't know. I haven't dug into the psychology of that. But, I'm just go back to me working with a coach. I was in that moment of, man, that's somebody I need to work with. But then when money's mentioned, it's all of a sudden all this resistance starts to show up. So a boost to innovation could be, I just need to trust myself and move forward, knowing that we can call that version 1.0. We can call it a pilot. I need to be confident and move forward, because as long as I'm sitting here kicking the can, I'm not implementing innovation, especially if I could couple this with, I don't have to be right. I don't have to be liked. I don't have to be clear before I move forward. In fact, what if instead we measured success, again, like I said, not by how many people agree and not by how comfortable I am, how much it feels right, but what if we measured success and innovation by how uncomfortable this makes me? Because your current rules are creating your current results. So if I'm only doing what feels right and what feels comfortable and familiar, those are my current rules. My current rules are going to deliver the same current result. So if you look back over, what do I want more of in the next 6 months? Where do I need to get really uncomfortable? Because I want to change the rules, because I want to change the results. Okay, that's my number 3. I have 2 more. Number 4 is I need to be in control. And it's funny when I say this to people, because most people say, I don't really have the need to control. Well, we think that until somebody does something that we didn't have a voice in, or we didn't feel like we had a lot of control over, and you feel how defensive that makes us, then you realize, well, maybe I do have the need to control. So here's what I want to say with this, because when you study innovators and you study innovations, you don't want to go like entirely rogue and take, irresponsible risks. Like, I don't want to take my entire life savings and bet it on the number 5. I don't gamble, so I don't even know what that would mean, but you get the idea of the example of that. So here's a booster with innovation. Start with what you have and call it a pilot. Call it version 1.0. Call it whatever you want. Call it nudging, pushing, tweaking. Start with what you know. What do you already have? One of my favorite stories from the Bible is the widow and the jar of oil. So summarizing, in case you don't know that story, I'll make it super quick. Her husband has died, and in that time, women had zero rights. And he not only died on her with these kids, these sons, but he left her in debt. So she's got this big debt to pay and no way of making money. And they're going to take her sons as payment for the debt so they could work it off. But she needs her sons. And so she goes to the prophet and she goes, my husband's dead. I'm in debt. And it's such a great story. And so the prophet does something super smart. He doesn't say, well, let me fix you. Let me help you. Let me solve your problem. He says, woman, what do you already have in the house? And so she says, a jar of oil. But that's exactly what she needed. And so the prophet says, all right, go to all your neighbors and get all of their jars and fill those up with oil. And if you know the story, the oil just keeps giving and giving and giving and giving and giving. So I want you to think about where you're needing innovation right now. Ask yourself, what do I already have in the house? Like, let's start with that. And a lot of great successful innovators have done just that. Airbnb started when some guys looked around in their apartment and said, we have an air mattress and an empty room. Let's rent it out. Like, they started with what they already had. They weren't looking at all the things that they didn't. Uber is another great example. It started with somebody needing a ride and seeing all these cars go by them that had empty seats and saying, I could be sitting in that seat and going to the airport with that person. So where do you have an opportunity to just start with what you already have and build from there and being okay in the unknown? So, there are wow people and there are how people. I'm more on the wow side. People who really, really need control typically are more on the how side. So before you just jump into the how, let's start thinking about what, let's spend some time on the wow. Now, this is my fifth and final point here about innovation, and it connects directly back to that zipper merge traffic pattern. Because I think one of the needs that we got to detach from is the need to compete, the need to compare. Right? That's a killer. That's an innovation barrier. And for whatever reason, our brains are also wired for this us against them mentality. If I'm winning, you're not. If they're winning, I'm not. And guys, you hear it all the time. I know you do. Management versus the staff. We hear concrete versus carpet. We hear North Texas versus Central Texas. Like, it's just like this hardwired wiring against. But when you think about this example, it's so relevant to innovation because the only way this pattern works, the pattern, by the way, that gets us there faster, that gets us there safer, the most efficient method is if we turn this need upside down, kind of like our own internal Copernicum shift. In other words, realizing that, wait a minute, maybe the sun doesn't revolve around me. Maybe this is not a need or a belief that I have to hold on to forever. If I just detach, even for fun, for a minute, what becomes possible? Because the only way this works is everyone collaborates. In fact, collaboration is, if we can collaborate in this zipper merge pattern, we all get what we want. But oftentimes, that's super true in innovation if we're willing to collaborate. And when it comes to innovation and we get this big wow idea, maybe the solution isn't a how. Maybe the solution is a who. maybe one of the first questions we should go to when we're really wanting to live out innovation is not how to do it, but who can help me? Who can I go to? Who can I go collect jars from? Who can I partner with? I started my company back in 2001, and I always thought about other people who do what I do, not as competition, but as potential partners. Like, who can partner with me? So that's my fifth need. So then I wanted to take a few minutes for a moment and really talk about, well, what are the building blocks? Like, what are some of these actions of teams that are getting this better than other teams, individuals that are getting this better than other individuals? So, ergonomics. It's a phrase we've heard forever in every industry. There's ergonomic teams, there's ergonomic studies, whether you're in construction or you're a warehouse worker or you're in healthcare or you're sitting at a desk. That's a pretty common belief now. Well, of course, you want to design your environment so your body doesn't get hurt, right? We want to design the environment in alignment with how the body works best. But when it comes to innovation in particular, we want to design environments the way the brain works best, because this is the equipment that's going to allow you to think a little bit bigger, to nudge even better if. This is this amazing piece of equipment. So as I reflect on like all the teams that we get to work with and leaders that we get to work with and everything that we do, there really are about 15 markers that I see if those things are in place and the underlying beliefs that support those actions, innovation can thrive and we get better results because of it. So that's what I put together. Now, I'm sure there's probably more than 15. But these are 15 big hitters that people are making time for fun, that we're allowing team members to think differently from the group. In fact, we're not just allowing it, we're encouraging it. What here doesn't make sense? You're bringing in a new person. What are their eyes seeing that you long stopped seeing? That we're valuing everybody's ideas and opinions. We don't have to be right. We're laying that down. We don't have to be in control. That we're marking off time to think strategically. If I'm looking at your calendar, is there any space for you to think innovatively or strategically? That we're always looking ahead to what's next. Even better if. Like, add that on. Ask somebody, how did my presentation go? And they're going to say, oh, it was so good. And you're going to follow up with even better if, because there's no end to innovation. That we really are looking at where are we competing and we're creating our own pain. Remember, if you're creating your pain, you forfeit the right to complain about it. Just live with it, okay? It's like the person that's in pain, but they won't go to the doctor. Well, then quit talking about it until you've gone to the doctor, and then I'll talk to you. So Lance hold me to that. Anyway, to encourage questioning what's been done in the past, that we're not married to that we are investing in our development. Listen, if we're not growing ourselves, what are you reading right now? What are you listening to? How are you surrounding yourself with people and stories that are a bigger, better, bolder version of yourself? That we're continuously seeking new ideas from different industries. Do you see that all the time? We do. Like, if I'm in healthcare or if I'm in construction or if I'm in technology, then I just continue to grow in that field. Well, let's think about other industries. There are best practices all over the place. That we are celebrating creativity and innovation, because what we reward, we can perpetuate also. We're always working on communication, and especially in the area of conflict, addressing it sooner rather than later without attachment, real-time feedback that reward and recognize each other's contributions. And then maybe one of the biggest things is working with what we already have. Like, what are your strengths? And being confident in that, not apologetic for that. So anyway, I put this together. You can grab it if you want. But just having a conversation with people that you work with and who's on your team, maybe even thinking about that individually, or even the people that live in your house. Where are we excelling and where can we improve? Okay, so I want to wrap with a question. We already looked at what are you encountering more right now? And is this the kind of more you want to be living with 6 months from now? Maybe yes. Or even better if. Or maybe where you are right now, it's like, hell no, I don't want to be living with this 6 months from now. So what kind of more do we want to be living with 6 months from now? And just out of any of these, what's one innovation booster that might help you get there faster? Okay. I don't know where that red line came up. Are y'all seeing a red line? I learned something new. Okay. I will say this, that your culture is important to us. And that when we're talking about culture, we're just talking about your norms, your beliefs, your actions that all lead to the results. So when you think about where you want to be in 6 months, if you think I'd like to get help getting there a whole lot faster, let's just jump on a call. When we do strategy call or discovery call, our intention is not to sell. Like, it really is to say, where are you? Where do you want to be? And how do we help you get there faster? But I can tell you this, if the right solution is for us to sell, we're going to do it. Because if that's the right solution for you, that's in best service. So if it's your team or if it's you individually, we can hop on a call. Never suffer in silence. Let's collaborate. Let's be partners. So in June, that's going to be like halftime. Okay. Halftime of the year. We're going to go back to a little bit of goal setting. We're going to be taking a look at what have you accomplished? Let's celebrate that. But also, what does next level Judith, Cody, David, Guillermo, Marie, like, what does next level look like? And it's a great time to just say, let's take a break. Let's go back to the field house. Let's reevaluate how we want the second half of this game to look like. And giving you some ideas and some tools to hopefully help you get there faster. Whew, we did it. Okay, it's 8:56. I know I went a few minutes over, but I always mark out till 9. Thank you guys. I will tell you this. We firmly believe that every single person we get to work with has a message and a style of delivering that message that hasn't been given to anyone else. So my challenge to you is go out there, protect that gift, no matter what. Whether it means I'm not going to be right. I may not be liked. I may not be clear. I may not be in control. And I may have to reach out and get some other people to help me with it. All right. So thanks for being here this morning. I always hang around extra time. I'm going to end our recording, though, if you want to hang around and talk about anything.